So the HTC U12 Plus, a flagship phone that carries two questionably essential specs, both of them being EdgeSense 2 and no buttons. Yo fam, what's going on? I'm Shakib here, and before I continue with this video, please hit that notification bell, subscribe button, and also follow me on social media to get your latest and greatest tech vids. So the U12 Plus, I was actually lucky enough to get this phone before it came out, and I want to take my time with this video because there was a lot of reviewers there was a lot of mixed reviews. People hated it, people loved it, people liked the battery, people disliked the battery. But here are my thoughts so far. So I want to start with the two main specs of this phone, EdgeSense 2 and no buttons. Let's talk about that a little bit. Now, traditional smartphones, they have mechanical buttons that you can press and click. But, you know, it's a little different on the U12 Plus. Basically, it's all pressure sensitive, meaning instead of clicks, you'll feel a vibration. So it's basically haptic feedback, which makes it really unique. Now your buttons are your volume rocker and your power button, and there's a haptic feedback that's included in each button. Now with that said, I'm not a huge fan of the button placement because I've came across many times where I've mistakenly pressed volume down thinking it's a power button, and the power button thinking it's a volume down button. Other than that, you know, it's a pretty neat feature because I've never seen this in any phone. So even with the bad placement, you do get used to it. Now we've seen tweetable gestures on the HTC U11, U11 Plus, and also the Pixel 2. The HTC U12 Plus is an upgraded version from the first generation of EdgeSense, which is called EdgeSense 2. It works the same traditional way as last time. All you gotta do is squeeze the phone with your desired hand, and it pulls up an action. You can also do a longer squeeze and perform another action, so you're just not stuck with one. You actually have different actions to choose from, like launching the camera, Google Assistant, opening a certain app, and a handful more. One of the new features they added was double tap, and it has the same fundamentals as squeezing your phone, but in this case you just tap the wide sensors that are located on both sides of the phone and it pulls up another action. It's basically where your active window minimizes down for a more comfortable use with just one finger, but you know, I personally don't really care about this function. I mean, it's great to have and it's cool HTC added this, but I prefer the double tap function to perform a different action. And that action would actually be Google Assistant, which is what I really use almost every single day. When using the phone, I didn't find myself squeezing the phone so often. As a matter of fact, I saw myself using the squeeze functionality of EdgeSense 2 when showing it off to my friends, which was probably once or twice a week. So yeah, it was barely used. But with EdgeSense 2, there's actually one feature I do use really often, and that's called the holding gesture. And I think it's genius. Let me tell you why. So the holding gesture is no rocket science of what it does. It's basically a smart screen orientation of your phone. And what I mean by that is that depending on how you hold your device, the phone screen will either switch to landscape or portrait mode without getting the user annoyed. And this is done by holding onto the edge sensors with your desired hand, and the orientation gets locked. Once you let go, the screen rotates again. Man, I really do appreciate HTC for adding this feature because I really use my phone a lot while laying down in bed or the couch or wherever. And you know, when you're getting that little awkward position and your phone just switches to landscape mode, and it gets frustrating because you don't want it to switch to landscape mode. You just want it to be in portrait mode while laying down, and you just want it to just stay like that. And it's not possible with all the old phones that we were using in the past. It was not possible with my S8, my S9 Plus, my OnePlus 6. But it is possible with this phone, and it does make a lot of things easier, and I really do appreciate that. But the holding gesture does not apply on the camera, so your phone will take portrait or landscape shots even if you're holding on the edge sensors. And one last thing about EdgeSense 2, if you don't like pressing the shutter button to take a pic, you can always squeeze the phone to take a picture, but I don't recommend this because your pics won't come out still, but it's a neat feature to have. And speaking of pictures, the HTC U12 Plus has 4 cameras, 2 rear and 2 in the front, and it also has a DXO Mark of 103, the highest mark on a dual camera yet. The rear camera has a main 12 megapixel lens with a f1.75 aperture and a wide-angle 16 megapixel lens with a 2-time optical zoom at a f2.6 aperture. And with that said, I'm actually really impressed with how the pictures came out. Did not expect HTC to do such a great job, especially with their high dynamic range. The edges are sharp, colors are smooth and not overly saturated. You now have a laser focus, so focusing on pictures is pretty fast, I must say. Also, focusing on objects on low light is very accurate, so you won't miss that nice shot. Now speaking of low light photos are nice and balanced with some deep blacks, making the letters on some objects pop out more, but sometimes they can, be a little noisy depending on how the lighting is in your environment. So a good low light scenery in the real world can probably turn out a little crappy on the phone. Sometimes the bokeh effects in portrait mode comes out pretty nice, making the subject the true focal point in the pictures and blurring out the background. But sometimes it is hard, there's a little hard time keeping the subject in focus. Like over here, the edges are pretty blurred out and I stood a good 3 to 4 feet away to take this picture. OIS is included and you can record 4K up to 60 frames per second and you can immersify your audio by 60%, which is pretty dope. You have slow motion on 240 frames per second at 1080p, but not super slow mo like the S9 Plus's massive 960 frames, but it's still good enough and it does the job right. Now again, the front has two cameras, one being the main lens which is 2.8 megapixels, and the second lens is a depth sensor for better bokeh shots. Both of them have an aperture of 2.0, and I pretty much agree with the good bokeh shot. The edges are sharp and they don't really seem to fade away sometimes like the iPhone X does on its portrait mode. And also on portrait mode you can control the bokeh effects depending on how you want your shot. And full HD recordings is also included, and I like how every detail is not so overexposed. Probably one of my most favorite features on the front camera lenses. The flagship color of this phone is actually called translucent blue. It's a no-brainer. It's called translucent blue because it's semi-transparent. The battery grill and NFC coil can be seen through the back, and I appreciate this colorway because it's very unique. And it brings me back to the old Nintendo 64 days where some of the controllers would be completely see-through. It's really awesome. Now the fingerprint placement is right below the LED flash and unlocking the phone is real easy and comfortable, but you can have a little delay sometimes unlocking the phone with your finger. It has a 6-inch Quad HD LED screen with a resolution of 2880 by 1440 pixels, but the bezels on this guy is a little chunky. Coming from the S9 Plus, this was a little hard getting used to because the S9 had an infinity display, barely any bezels, but this guy has a big head and chin, but at least there's no notch, right? When it comes to sound, it has two front-facing boom sound speakers, one located on the top and one on the bottom by the charging port. From my experience, the speakers sound pretty much average, and I was a little disappointed because HTC, they do make great speakers, especially from the M series back, a few years ago, and it was not so loud either, and I was a little disappointed. And what also adds more to my disappointment is that this phone does not support Dolby Digital Atmos. So surround sound experience was, it was alright. Now testing on the sound, I average around 75 decibels, whereas the S9 Plus I'm getting around 90 decibels. That's a huge difference. Now as sucky as that sounds, the U12 Plus does have a neat feature where you can change your audio quality to cater more towards music, which increases the bass and treble a little, and a theater mode, which does increase the surround sound, but not by that much. But even with that feature, the audio is still average. On theater mode, it just enhances surround a little. In music mode, the treble and bass is just amplified, but not in a way where my mind is blown. But it's not a deal breaker. It's still good audio, but not the best I've heard on a phone. The processor is a Snapdragon 845 chip with 6 GB of RAM. And I'm not gonna lie, with the time I spent on this phone, I was impressed with how fast this performed. I'm not a huge fan of HTC Sense, but I had no lag of launching or switching in between apps at all. Even with all the updates after getting the phone, HTC Sense did a great job with keeping the bloatware at a low, so it was an awesome experience. Now for the battery, it does power with USB Type-C with Quick Charge 4.0, and I was able to get around an hour of usage with 20 minutes of charge. Now it does not have wireless charging, which was a bummer for me because I use my wireless charger almost every day, but it's definitely not a deal breaker. Some people complain that the battery did not last them the whole entire day, but in my experience, I was actually coming home with about 35 to 40% of battery, which was definitely more than my S9 Plus. Overall, it's a great phone. It's fast, great performance, takes great pictures, HDsense 2.0 is good, battery's good, but there are a few things that I dislike, and that's being the speakers are bad. Well, they're not bad. The speakers are average. It's not so loud. It does not have wireless charging. It also does not have a headphone jack. But I feel like that's almost become a norm now in 2018. And also, I wish the fingerprint scanner was just a little faster. It does have a delay, as I mentioned before, but it's nothing, it's not really a deal breaker. But just wish it was a little faster. And the price is a little steep, starting at $800 for 64 gigs and $850 at 128 gigs. But the memory is expandable, so that's a good thing. If you are looking for a budget-friendly phone, consider the OnePlus 6. If you have the S9, S9 Plus, Pixel 2, iPhone 10, I'd stick with those phones for now. They do have some specs which are a little better than the HTC U12 Plus, but if you have the U11 or any other HTC phones on their lineup, definitely do consider upgrading, because this phone will not fail with delivery. It will not disappoint you. So that's all we have for today. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and finesse on the subscribe button. It will really help me out. And fun fact number 28, the electric chair was actually invented by a dentist, which seems a little interesting. Very interesting. So thanks for watching. I'm Zashak. Stay tech strong, and deuces.